a lot happened the last time we read.
Yeah.
Okay, a lot. Yeah, Case.
So in 2009, they're building a school, and in Selva, he just figured out his mom and dad are alive, and he's planning to move back to the.
And he's been in America for 5 years.
He went to visit him, but because the war was still going on, he couldn't stay. So, but eventually he wants to go back to Sudan to do something. And one of his brothers survived, and the rest died.
Because both
All his sisters and mom are still alive.
Mhm.
At the house. So he
Yep.
can't go see them. He would have to quit.
Yep, his sisters and his mom are alive. They're at home, and his father is in the hospital. He went to visit his father. He got to see his father, so that was really nice. But he has to go home because the war is still going on, and he's going to be torn in half because both sides are going to want him to fight with them. So he has to go back to America, which he's fine with. He's in his 20s, and he wants to do something to help Sudan become a better place. Yeah. Yep. And it was interesting how he was talking about the letters OUGH and how they have so many different pronunciations. And we've all noticed that before, and we've talked about it before, how tough and bow and through and trot, like they all have different sounds, but they're the same letters, and that shouldn't be the case. And so it's kind of interesting to see him going through that process of learning English. And now he can speak it, yeah, very, very fluently. It's pretty impressive. Yes.
I saw a video last night, and there was a French guy, or whatever, and his girlfriend speaks like how, and so he asked him, how do you say this number? And he held up 3, and they were in a place where they with like an accent, and he said 3. He's like, see, that's how we say it. There's people they believe in.
Yeah. All right. So we are on chapter 18. It is the last chapter. Salva has been fundraising for years. The last part about Salva was from 2003 to 2007. So 2007, he was fundraising in order to pull off something that he was going to do to help Sudan. Why was his father sick?
Because the water,
Contaminated water.
in his stomach, but he wasn't yet had surgery, but the surgery was successful.
Yeah.
you gotta walk like really far away.
Mhm.
Barely live after you watch that.
Yeah. So to get to the hospital, he basically had to crawl himself to the hospital. It was so far away, and his recovery took longer because of that. I like him, but write a message on the back. All right, so chapter 18. Southern Sudan, 2009. So this is Naya's story. Naya waited her turn in line. She was holding a plastic bottle. The well was finally finished. The gravel had been put down to make a foundation. The pump had been installed and the cement had been poured and left to dry. Before the pump was used for the first time, the villagers all gathered around. The leader of the workers brought in the big sign made of blue canvas. The canvas had writing on it. The writing was in English, but the leader spoke to Naya's uncle, and Uncle told everyone what the sign said. In honor of Elm Street School, Uncle said, This is the name of a school in America. The students at the school raised money for this well to be dug. Uncle held up one end of the sign. The workers' leader held up the other end. Everyone else stood around it, and one of the workers took their picture. The picture would be sent to the American school so the students could see the well and the people who are now using it. Then the villagers all got in line to wait their turn for water from the new well. Oh, one more thing. Why is Naya really excited about the school? Luke.
Because it helps make it that she doesn't have to walk a lot.
The well makes it so she doesn't have to walk a lot. Because she doesn't have to walk a lot, she will now have the opportunity to go to school. Girls and boys.
That's a big step.
Mm-hmm. When Naya reached the head of the line, she smiled shyly at her uncle, who paused in his work for a moment to smile back at her. Then he began moving the pump handle, up and down, up and down. A stream of water flowed from the mouth of the pump. Naya held her bottle underneath the pump mouth. The bottle filled up quickly. She stepped aside to let the next person fill a bottle. Then she drank. The water was delicious. It wasn't warm or muddy like the water from the pond. It was cool and clear. Naya stopped drinking and held up the bottle so she could look at it. Funny that something without any color at all could look so nice. She drank a few more sips, then glanced around. Everyone had a bottle or a cup. They were drinking that lovely water or waiting in line for more or talking and laughing. It was a celebration. An old granddad standing not far from Naya shook his head in a loud voice. He said, "This is where we used to gather for our bonfire celebrations. I've been sitting on this ground my whole life, and all those years I never knew that I was sitting on top of this good water." Everyone around him laughed. Naya laughed too. In a few more days, the school would be finished. Naya and Depp and Akir would all go to school along with the other children. Next year, there would be a marketplace where the villagers could sell and buy vegetables and chickens and other goods. There was even talk of a clinic someday, a medical clinic, so they wouldn't all have to walk so far to get help as they had to when Akir was ill. It was the well that was bringing the village all these good things, but the well was not for their use alone. People would come from miles around to fetch the good, clean water. Naya knew from listening to the grown-ups that the crew leader had made many arrangements concerning the well. No one was ever to be refused water. Some of the villagers would be responsible for maintaining the well. They would be busy with this new work, so the entire village was to help them with their crops and cattle. Other villagers, including Naya's uncle, would resolve any disputes that arose. The well would change their lives in many ways. I will never again have to walk to the pond for water, Naya thought. She wandered around a little, sipping at her cool, fresh drink. Then she caught sight of the crew leader. He was standing by himself, leaning against one of the trucks and watching her uncle work the pump. Depp saw her looking at the man. "That man, the boss of the workers," Depp said. "You know that he's Dinka?" Naya looked at Depp in astonishment. The Dinka and the Noor did not look very different physically. You had to look at the scar patterns on people's faces to tell the tribes apart. Dinka scar patterns were different from those of the Noor, but the crew leader had no scars on his face. Naya had heard some of the teenage boys talking about that, wondering why he had no scars when clearly he was a grown man. The leader's assistant was Noor. So were most of the crew. They all had Noor scars. Naya hadn't thought about it much, but she realized now that she had always assumed that the leader was Noor too. The Dinka and the Noor were enemies, had been for hundreds of years. Why would a Dinka bring us water? She wondered aloud. "I heard Uncle and Father talking about him," Depp said. He has drilled many wells for his own people. This year, he decided to drill for the Noor as well. Depp had not really answered Naya's question. He probably doesn't know the answer, she thought. But now Naya felt there was something she had to do. She walked over to where the man was standing. He didn't notice her at first, so she waited quietly. Then he saw her. "Hello," he said. Shyness flooded through Naya. For a moment, she didn't think she would be able to speak. She looked down at the ground, then at the stream of water still flowing from the pump mouth, and she found her voice. "Thank you," she said, and looked at him bravely. "Thank you for bringing us the water." The man smiled. "What is your name?" he asked. "I am Naya." "I'm happy to meet you, Naya," he said. "My name is Salva."
It all makes sense why there's two stories in one book because the two stories tied together.
The two stories came
I knew they
together.
were gonna tie together eventually.
Yeah, why would...
I didn't think they were tied together. I thought they were like two different stories.
A message from Salvador. This is the real Salvador. So this is a fictionalized version of his life, but Salva is a real person that we've said before. Okay, Naya, I don't know, but Salva, most of what we read about Salva is true. Okay,
He dug the well.
there might have been some things he didn't remember. Okay, so this is a message from Salva. This book is based on the true story of my life. I hope that because of the book, more people will learn about the lost boys in the country of Sudan. I was born in a small village called Lunarik in the Tonj County, southern Sudan. And just as it says in the book, I stayed in refugee camps in Ethiopia and Kenya for many years before I came to America. I am thankful to a great many people. The United Nations and the International Red Cross supported my life when I was in danger of starvation. The Moore family, St. Paul Episcopal, I should know how to say that, St. Paul Episcopal Church, and the community of Rochester, New York, welcomed me to the United States. So the Moore family, those are his new parents that he talked about when he had new parents. They were the Moores. I am also grateful for the education I have received, especially at Monroe Community College. My deepest gratitude to the people who have helped me with my project, Water for Sudan Incorporated, the schools, churches, civic organizations, and individuals all over the country. Special thanks to the Board of Water for Sudan and to the Rotary clubs that have worked closely with me. My dreams of helping people back home in Sudan are beginning to come true. I overcame all the difficult situations of my past because of the hope and perseverance that I had. I would not have made it without those two things. To young people, I would like to say, stay calm when things are hard or not going right with you. You will get through it when you persevere instead of quitting. Quitting leads to much less happiness in life than perseverance and hope. Salvador, 2010.
I was one.
I was zero. Okay. So I have this thing. But otherwise I put marker, so it's like this.
It doesn't say. I was born.
Gotta let it dry a little bit. It'll be fine. Just leave it at your table. All right, so this is a note from the author. Some of the details in the story have been fictionalized. If you fictionalize something, you take a real fact and you add details to it to make it not true. But the major events depicted are based on Salva's own experiences. I read his written accounts and interviewed him for many hours. I also read other books and accounts by and about lost boys. For Naya's part of the story, I was able to interview travelers who had seen the water wells being drilled in villages like hers. So Naya is a made-up person. I also benefited from examining their video footage and photographs. Known as the Second Sudanese Civil War, the conflict that is depicted in this book began in 1983. Many factions were involved and numerous changes in leadership took place over the duration of the war, but in essence, the opposing sides were the Muslim-dominated government in the north and the non-Muslim coalition in the south. Besides religion, economic strife was an important factor, as the country's reserves of oil are located in the south. Millions of people were killed, imprisoned, tortured, captured, kidnapped, or enslaved. Millions more were permanently displaced, unable to return to their homes. Among those displaced were hundreds of thousands of so-called lost boys like Salva, who walked in desperation through southern Sudan, Ethiopia, and Kenya in search of safe haven. Many of the lost boys who were able to return home after the war found that their families had vanished. Others languished in refugee camps like those Salva lived in. Some were eventually reunited with their loved ones, often after decades apart. In 2002, nearly 20 years after the war began, the United States government passed the Sudan Peace Act, officially accusing the Sudanese government of genocide and the deaths of more than 2 million people. 3 years later, a peace accord was signed between the North and the South. The South was granted autonomy, the ability to govern itself, for 6 years and became Southern Sudan. 2011, a referendum took place in which the citizens of Southern Sudan voted to secede, break away from Sudan, gaining their independence from the North. Unrest over South Sudan's oil and its political leadership have roiled in its infancy as the world's newest nation. The war in Darfur, in the western part of Sudan, is a separate conflict, not covered by the peace accord. As of this writing, the war is still being fought between factions who identify themselves as Arabic and those who consider themselves African. The two wars, combined with several years of severe drought, have brought untold suffering to the people of Sudan. Salva has seen his family in Sudan twice more since the events of the story, including a moving reunion with his cousins, the children of Uncle Jwer. That's the uncle that he saw murdered. And amazingly, 7 of the lost boys who walked with Salva from Ethiopia to Kenya met up with him again when they were all relocated to the Rochester, New York area. As of spring 2014, Salva Dutt's nonprofit organization Water for South Sudan has drilled more than 250 wells in southern Sudan for Dinka and Nuer communities, supplying fresh water for hundreds of thousands of people. The very first well was drilled in Salva's home village in Lunarik. Salva moved to South Sudan in 2011 and now lives there. You can learn more about the organization's work at www.waterforsouthsudan.org. I first met Salva several years ago when my husband and I learned about Water for South Sudan. In 2008 and 2015, my husband traveled to South Sudan to see Salva's work, and I am grateful for his help in answering my endless questions. This story could not have been written without him. My family and I feel very fortunate to count Salva as a friend. It has truly been an honor to write this book with him. In 2015, she added, A Long Walk to Water was first published in 2010. Since then, to my surprise and joy, many students who have learned about Salva Dutt's amazing story have been inspired to action. Teachers, librarians, school administrators, parents, and most especially students have raised hundreds of thousands of dollars for Salva's nonprofit organization, Water for South Sudan. The most popular fundraiser is a walk for water. Some schools arrange for students to carry heavy jugs of water while walking, just like Naya does in the book. Other schools take the H2O challenge, drinking only water for a period of time and donating the cost of other beverages such as soda. A wishing well in the school lobby or cafeteria to receive donations of spare change, paper cups of water sponsored and displayed on a wall, individual students requesting contributions in lieu of birthday or bar bat mitzvah gifts. We're so impressed at the multitude of fun, creative, and effective fundraising strategies we've heard about. Salva and I want to sincerely thank you. Because of your effort, hundreds of water wells have been drilled, and many of them bear the names of the schools whose donations enabled their construction. Your hard work is literally saving people's lives every single day. If you would like to join this life-saving effort, please visit the website waterforsouthsudan.org. You'll find up-to-date reports on Salva's work, lots of photos and videos, and information on current campaigns, as well as more ideas for fundraising. Keep reading and walk the walk. Linda Sue Park and Salva Dutt. The end. So what do you think?
I'm on the website right now.
You're on his website right now?